another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Shelby Webb, speaking on the benefits of the blood type diet. Shelby is a certified holistic nutrition consultant in Nashville, Tennessee. She's a graduate of the American College of Healthcare Sciences in Portland, Oregon. She works with clients in person or via Skype and promotes a whole foods diet, avoiding environmental toxins, and moving more. She is passionate about avoiding GMOs, the healing power of probiotics, and eating right. She loves helping those with hormone disorders, food sensitivities, and those who have trouble losing weight. For more information, please visit her website at webbwellnessconsulting.com. Welcome, Shelby, to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Thanks, Dr. Laura. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so today's topic, we're going to be focusing on benefits of the blood type diet. And you have a really interesting story that I'm really excited for you to share with our listeners, your own personal story about the blood type diet. So please tell us about how you got involved in that and why you chose to become a certified holistic nutrition consultant.
Sure. I chose this career path because I changed my diet to mitigate the symptoms of polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was diagnosed with that while I was in college. It's a super common hormone disorder that affects millions of American women. So I was given treatment options for polycystic ovarian syndrome by, my conventional providers that, in my opinion, were unacceptable and inadequate. So I started studying and reading about holistic health on my own for several years, and my passion was just really overflowing to the point where I think I was annoying my close friends and family with all this new information that I was trying to share with them. So I decided to start giving my advice to people who want to hear it instead. So fast forward to now, I've lost about a fifth of my former body weight, and I know that changing my lifestyle, especially the food that I eat, has healed my body. And so being a holistic nutrition consultant is so exciting because I want to help other people find that same true wellness by modifying their lifestyles.
Mm-hmm. Right. Maybe you could actually elaborate, go on a little bit more about what a certified holistic nutrition consultant is and how you can help people.
Sure. So what I do is coach individuals one-on-one in person if they live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I live, or via Skype. And so I basically, if the goal is weight loss, that's what we definitely focus on. I use a whole foods approach. I definitely believe in that being the base of every diet. And so I help people avoid GMOs, eat less processed food, replace sugar with better alternatives like stevia, things like that. And so my role is really education about holistic nutrition principles and just helping people get excited about changing their diets and about learning more. So I use the blood type diets that we're going to talk about today if someone knows their blood type. But if not, I am definitely open to helping people explore the diet that they would like to follow.
Mm-hmm. And I know you, beyond weight loss, what other types of symptoms or conditions have you helped your clients with?
Well, food sensitivities are a big one, and people are learning more and more about that, which I think is so great. So if someone knew that they were sensitive to a certain food, I can certainly help them avoid that and make sure that they're still getting the proper nutrition. And that also ties in with the blood type diets as well, because it really gives the background and explains why we have some of the foods that we're sensitive to, and what you can do about that.
And I'm also assuming that because of your history with hormonal imbalance, you've been able to help other women with that as well.
Right. And so that's the reason that I got interested in this. And so it's an important issue that I want to focus on and get that information out. Definitely on my website, you'll see a lot of information about balancing your hormones and how to eat right in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. Even things like if you are eating meat, eating the free-range organic meats that don't have hormones and antibiotics added to the meat, and also dairy. Because now we know in the United States, anything that's non-organic regarding dairy and meat are going to have additional hormones and antibiotics added to it. So this is something that we do not want to put in our body.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's a twofold issue there with meat and dairy. Your body might process meat perfectly fine, but it's not going to process the added hormones and antibiotics fine. So it's definitely more complicated than just eating meat or just eating dairy. We definitely have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's totally true. So tell us exactly what is the blood type diet and how does it work?
Sure. The blood type diet, there are 4 diets because there are 4 blood types, O, A, B, and then B. And so your diet will be anti-inflammatory because you're avoiding foods that would result in inflammation in your body. So the doctor who wrote this book is a naturopathic doctor. His name is Peter D'Adamo, and he had done decades of research on this topic before the book was even published, which was in 1999, almost 20 years ago. And so the premise of the book is that when we eat a food, a chemical reaction occurs, and so each blood type reacts differently to different foods. And the book goes into really great detail about the science behind the diets, and essentially what we need to understand is that the blood types react differently to different lectins, which are proteins that are found in our foods, an example of which is gluten, which we're all, I think, familiar with. And so the doctor explains that if a certain lectin isn't compatible with your blood type, the end result is inflammation, which, as we all know, is the root cause of all disease. So the book gives lists for each food category, like vegetables. So you would be given for vegetables 3 categories: highly beneficial, neutral, and avoid. So anything on your highly beneficial list for fruits would act like a medicine. Neutral foods just act like foods. And then according to the doctor, the foods on your avoid list act like poison. So it's pretty straightforward in the book as far as what food it is that you should eat. And there's also an app available that you can download. It's called the Blood Type Diet app. And so if you don't have time or don't want to read the book, you can do that, and it gives you the most updated list and some background information as well. And it makes it really easy because you can create a shopping list from that app and everything. The reason I think the Blood Type Diet is accessible and interesting is because I think that a lot of the diets that we hear about today tell you a lot about what you're not supposed to eat, and they don't tell us enough about what we are supposed to eat. And so I think the blood type diet really does a good job of explaining why this is good for you and how it can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually really helpful because there are so many, especially with the standard American diet, there's so many avoid type foods, right, that are out there.
Right.
And it can, it's really, I think in general, when we're looking at food and how we nourish our body, we want to look at all of the foods that we can eat and that are nourishing and healthy for us to eat. And it switches the emotional energy towards food, towards abundance, as opposed to lack of, or, I have to suffer because I can't eat, this type of food, and moving towards pleasure as opposed to moving away from pain.
Exactly. And so it's like focusing on positivity instead of negativity. In that way, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So can you just go through maybe some the guidelines, basic guidelines of each blood type, the 4 that you mentioned?
Definitely. the first and most common blood type is type O. It's the oldest blood type. They are universal donors, and their diet is pretty much a paleo diet. It's high proteins, gluten and dairy free, and so the leading factor in weight gain for type O's is gluten because of its role in inhibiting insulin metabolism. So O's are, in order to lose weight, O's are supposed to eat kelp, seafood, iodized salt, liver, red meat, kale, spinach, brown. Foods that encourage weight gain for type O's are corn, kidney beans, navy beans, lentils, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, mustard greens. And so the book also goes into the diseases that you would be more susceptible to based on your blood type, which is fascinating. So for type O's, the two diseases for these folks are hypothyroidism and then stomach ulcers. And the stomach ulcers is important to understand because type O's have more hydrochloric acid, more stomach acid, and so that for that reason they're able to process meat better than some of the other blood types. And then you're also given guidelines for exercise based on your blood type. For type O's, they're supposed to focus on high intensity, highly physical exercise like jogging, aerobics, cycling, things like that. And then, so Dr. Laura and I are both type A's. We're both A positive. And so type A's flourish on a vegetarian diet because they have low hydrochloric acid compared to type O, certainly. So I've also had that independently confirmed by having a biofeedback test. I was also told that I had low stomach acid, and I thought, well, I already know that because I learned that from the blood type diet, but I have had that confirmed, which is interesting. And so foods that encourage weight gain for type A are meat, dairy foods, kidney beans, lima beans, and then wheat in abundance. And foods that encourage weight loss for type A are vegetable oils, soy foods, vegetables, and pineapple. The diseases for type A's are pretty serious: heart disease, cancer, diabetes. And so there's a big stress link. For type A's, we apparently produce more cortisol than is needed, and so the exercise that we are recommended is generally related to reducing stress, right? So yoga, meditation, brisk walking, and things like that. And then moving to type B blood, they are recommended a mix of type A and O diets. So the foods that encourage weight gain for type Bs are wheat, corn, lentils, peanuts, sesame seeds, and buckwheat. And then foods that encourage weight loss are green vegetables, meat, liver, eggs, and low-fat dairy products. And the diseases that Bs are more susceptible to are immune system disorders like MS, lupus, and chronic fatigue syndrome. And then the exercise that they are recommended are moderate activities that involve other people, like hiking, tennis, biking, things like that. And the last blood type is AB. It's the rarest and the youngest blood type. They also have low stomach acid like type A's, and so foods that encourage weight gain for type AB folks are red meat, kidney beans, lima beans, seeds, corn, buckwheat, and wheat. And then foods that encourage weight loss for AB is tofu, seafood, dairy, green vegetables, kelp, and pineapple. And then the disease that they're more susceptible to is stomach cancer. And then exercise for type AB is yoga, hiking, and swimming. And the doctor says that the key there for exercise is mental engagement in your physical activity.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for kind of taking some time to go through that. And, you know, I think that what people can find out here is that there's foods that are really good for your type of blood type, foods that you really should minimize or completely avoid. And then the different exercises that are best for your blood type are really fascinating as well. And like you mentioned, I'm an A positive blood type, and you know, intuitively when I was in college, I shifted my diet to vegetarian, and started doing yoga and meditating.
Really?
And I had not read the book yet. It actually came out the year I graduated from college. So when I went to chiropractic school, we were taught about this. And I was like, oh, I'm already doing that. And even though, like, my entire life I had eaten meat and had more physical activity. So it was interesting how, when we're really more in touch with our body and what our body's needs are, we can start to tap in to what we need. And, there's certainly times that I will go for a run as well, and that's fine. But I ran the marathon, New York Marathon, 5 years ago, and that was certainly something that I can now see it was not in my wheelhouse. It's not something that is great for my body on a regular basis, where other blood types could probably thrive more in that type of marathon training conditions. I'll stick to my yoga.
Right. Oh my gosh, me too. Me too.
Funny. So it's really cool. I mean, and I've read bits of the book, but it's so cool that there's all this research to show like the biochemistry behind how different foods interact differently with different blood types, as well as physical activity. Because there is biochemical changes that occur when we move our body a certain way and when we have different thoughts, as well as when we consume different types of food. So it makes sense that could be measured in a scientific manner, and that it seems to work well. Now, have you ever met anybody that did not do well on this diet, like that you knew their blood type and they were following the guidelines and it didn't seem to resonate with them?
No, I actually have not. But I have met people who were skeptics, right, who did not believe that the blood type diet was true, or who said that it had been debunked. I certainly don't believe that it has been debunked, just because of the amount of research that's been done on this topic. But I think that the reason that I guess I'll call it a rumor, it's kind of out there, is because it kind of goes against the conventional nutrition advice, which is basically a one-size-fits-all approach, right? And I think that the blood type diets are so interesting because it speaks to that individuality of our bodies, which we're learning more and more about. And so it really shows us the way that our bodies are unique. So I have never met anyone who's tried the diet and said, hey, it just didn't work for me, because you're getting such a variety, even if you eat according to your diet, that I've never had anyone say this didn't work for me at all. So.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think to your point, it's not completely individualized because you're still only in the one of four categories, but within that category, you could probably become a little more custom of what feels right and what doesn't feel right when you're eating certain foods and moving your body in a certain way. And that just goes back to that mindfulness of what feels right for your body, what seems to be good for it and what seems to not be as helpful.
Right. And it's customizable in that way because you don't have to only eat highly beneficial foods exclusively, and you don't have to never eat and avoid food. And so you really have that control to make the diet really fit with your life.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is so important to make it doable. So I'd love for you to kind of share with us about when you were in school, learning to become a nutrition consultant. You learned about different types of diets that are out there. Why did the blood type diet seem to connect with you the strongest and versus the other diets?
Well, and I had actually already learned about the blood type diet several years before I began my formal study, and so I had personal experience with it and had success with it at that time. But the reason it was helpful still to learn about it, with my peers in school, because I think the reason that it is a great diet is because it's an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, and it focuses on eating right versus dieting. I think Americans are sick of fad diets. We should be. We've had enough over the years. I think it's refreshing because it's really a lifestyle that you can incorporate into your life as much as you're comfortable with. And obviously, I think you would see more benefit the more you adhere to the program. But I think it's just about eating right and about doing what's best for your body instead of restricting yourself as it would. As you might feel with a regular diet.
Right. It's definitely lifestyle-based, not diet-based, so to speak. I guess the word diet could be used in a couple ways. It could be referring to what you eat, or it can be referred to like taking certain foods out of your consumption and
right.
restricting calories, restricting fat intake, things like that, dieting. And that does have a negative connotation because it is about, having to suffer, so to speak. And really, whenever we do anything like that regarding dieting to lose weight, we're not going to get long-term benefits because it's not necessarily sustainable, number one. And number two, once you go back to your old eating habits, weight typically comes back on, and then we see that yo-yo effect. So creating a new lifestyle that is sustainable, that you can follow for the rest of your life is really the best outcome here. And beyond the weight loss, it's about really, like you were mentioning, decreasing the inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the root cause of all disease processes. So whatever we can do to have less inflammation in our body, the healthier our body is going to be.
Absolutely, and I like your point about the sustainability of it, and that is my mantra because I want the clients that I consult with to create a diet that they are going to be able to follow forever. It shouldn't feel like punishment, right? It should feel like nourishment. It should feel it's an act of self-love to really take care of yourself in this way and eat food that really nourishes your body.
I completely agree with that. And, this is another point that maybe we can talk about because there's a lot of emotional eating that's out there, especially in the United States. So how do you help support a client, let's say, who has emotional eating issues, so to speak, or perhaps sugar addiction, and who want to eat healthier, they want to lose weight, they want to create a new lifestyle, but there's such it's beyond a physical issue. There's an emotional attachment as well. How do you help support that person in changing their lifestyle?
That's a great question. It is a super important issue. I think that with clients like that, the first thing to let them know is that it's okay to not change everything overnight, because you don't want them. What you don't want to happen is for them to think that they have to change everything overnight and then get overwhelmed and say, "Okay, I can't do this." So I try to encourage them to be really patient with themselves. I think that food journals can be a helpful idea because it makes you conscious of what you're putting in your body. I think that's helpful for people like who might have an issue with that.
Right, the food journals. I think the other thing you mentioned was baby steps. So not making anything too drastically change from what the familiarity and the comfort level is, because no matter what kind of new habit we're trying to create as human beings, we're all human, right? And if we're used to doing something one way, it can be very challenging to make huge, quick changes. So being patient with yourself, having accountability, which is why a holistic nutrition consultant or another type of healthcare practitioner is so valuable in helping to support your lifestyle changes. I'm sure you see that a lot as well, like just having that support from somebody who's checking in, that you are able to report your status, and it takes about 21 days to create a new habit. So this is not okay, I meet with somebody and I learn what to do and then I'm off on my own. It's, for most people, it does require some follow-up and some hand-holding, and that's perfectly fine, because this is really about making changes forever. These are like forever lifestyle changes, and it's just so helpful to have that support as you go along that journey of creating health and wellness.
Exactly, and it like you said, it takes 21 days. That's interesting. It does take time, and changing your diet is so personal. Food is so personal to people, and so that the baby steps are super important. And I'm a holistic nutrition consultant, but I have a person that I'm accountable to, a naturopath, and I check in with her. I think everyone needs that. I think it's so important to make sure that you're on track and just to have that second set of eyes.
That's right, for sure. So I know that, for yourself, you were able to lose weight when you changed your diet to the blood type diet, and it directly also impacted your hormonal imbalance issues that you were having with PCOS. Can you share with our audience exactly how nutrition can help with hormonal imbalances like PCOS and painful periods and uterine fibroids and other issues like that? Definitely.
My Bible on this issue on balancing female hormones is from Dr. Bob DeMaria, and the book is called The Drugless Guide to Balancing Female Hormones. I bought it several years ago, and I always refer back to it. He explains in a very easy to understand way that our hormones should be thought of as messengers because they're manufactured by our endocrine system, and we use the term, we might throw around the term, you are what you eat. It is so literally true when it comes to our hormones because the nutrients in the foods that we eat are needed to make up and replace the hormones in our body. So we have to keep that in mind. And so with women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome like me, they frequently have excess estrogen in their bodies. And because in a regular and a healthy body, progesterone normally balances estrogen. With women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, that's not possible because we don't have enough progesterone to counter that excess estrogen. It can lead to all kinds of problems like thyroid issues. And so our liver is really the powerhouse here, and it processes estrogen to be recycled or eliminated out of our systems. But the nutrition component comes in here because if your liver is overtaxed because you're eating way too much sugar or trans fats, your liver can't process the estrogen as well as it could have otherwise. So by learning about our hormones, we see how everything is so interconnected. There are foods that we can eat that help balance our hormones, like eating B vitamins because they help our liver process estrogen. So those foods would include whole grains, tuna, chicken, and then also we can help our hormones nutritionally by reducing sugar because it depletes our body of B vitamins, which again we need to process estrogen. So other foods we can eat to help our bodies eliminate estrogen are cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, cauliflower, and foods like that. I also think it's worth noting outside of nutrition that environmental factors are huge in terms of balancing our hormones, and so xenoestrogens, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in contraceptives. Xenoestrogens, thank you, in oral contraceptives, and in almost all plastics have estrogen-like effects. So if you know that you have estrogen dominance or estrogen saturation, it's even more important for you to avoid those products and eliminate plastic from your life and replace it with glass or what have you. I think that is super important as well.
Oh, for sure. I had Dr. Alan Warshawski on the podcast a few episodes ago, and he's a holistic OBGYN in New York, and he spoke a lot about, lifestyle measures, diet included, but beyond diet, of things to do on an everyday basis to minimize exposure to these xenoestrogens, which are the synthetic estrogen-like molecules that mimic estrogen in our body. And they can really wreak havoc with hormones for men and for women, actually, which is really scary. and children, boys, girls.
Right.
So limiting the exposure to those types of chemicals that are found like in plastics, but also even skincare products, makeup, things like that can have other types of xenoestrogens in them, our pollution in our air and our water. And then you also mentioned birth control pill. And what's funny is I remember in chiropractic school learning how the birth control pill depletes our body of B vitamins, specifically B6. And it's funny how we need those B vitamins to help us metabolize estrogens, right? And so,
right.
And that's why it's depleted, because you're putting these synthetic estrogens in your body, and your body is having to work harder to process this in your liver. And so, when you see, symptoms of B vitamin depletion include fatigue, so low energy. It also includes nerve pain. So it's funny how you see like these types of things are all connected. And I think what I've seen here, and even kind of you alluded to a little bit at the beginning of your story, when women are having female hormone imbalances in their body that present in many different ways, a traditional allopathic approach is to put a woman on the birth control pill. And that's actually one of the worst things you can do. It will mask the symptoms a lot of times, and a woman might feel better and look better, so to speak, but it's not addressing the underlying hormonal imbalance, and actually it's making it worse because it's not being addressed. So it's good to also have that awareness that with something like the birth control pill, it does not regulate your hormones, and it is not helping to restore normal, healthy hormone balance in your body. So, working with a holistic practitioner can help you actually achieve that goal.
Right. And so it's doubly bad advice, and that the first thing is that especially for women with PCOS, I mean, that is the only that's the recommended treatment. Take birth control, and good luck. So it's bad because first it adds in more of what we already don't need, right? And then the second thing, like you said, is that it doesn't address that underlying issue. And that was my frustration, was that it seemed that none of the healthcare providers that I sought advice from about PCOS were interested in getting to the root cause. Why are my hormones messed up? Why is this happening? What am I doing? What can I change? And it was just, I might as well have been talking to a brick wall. So, that led me here, and it's been a positive experience. And I just want to tell other people who are frustrated, it's like, taking control of your health in this way is so empowering, because you can do so much good by just learning about lifestyle things and lifestyle changes that you can make.
Oh, for sure. It is really very much empowering. In my practice, I do a lot of fertility preconception work as well, and that's something that when we're detoxing and cleaning out the body in preparation for pregnancy, certainly addressing any hormonal imbalances is really important. Number one, because that is that's related to toxic load, and number two, it also impacts the ability to conceive. And so, having hormone balance, of course, is going to make it easier to get pregnant and sustain a healthy pregnancy. So it's exciting when women, are not victims of labels like PCOS or other diagnoses regarding hormonal imbalance, and instead work with a holistic functional medicine type practitioner who's going to really help show you what you can do on a daily basis to clean out your body and improve your health and your vitality, and therefore your ability to conceive and have healthy children. And this is also then passed along to our offspring as well. So by doing this work, what we see is how this impacts, especially if the baby is a girl, how that impacts her eggs, because her eggs are completely formed while she's in utero, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? So therefore, a woman's lifestyle decisions will directly impact her grandchildren's health. which is like,
it's incredible.
Wow. It is incredible.
The book that I was just mentioning, the Balancing Female Hormones, Dr. DeMaria goes into how there is a link between being a second child and hormonal issues, and so he goes in and explains that you're more likely to have hormonal issues if you're the second child, and depending on the health or lack thereof of your mother's liver at the time that you were born. I mean, that just blows me away that is the case. But he says, that's a trend that he has absolutely seen. It's so interesting.
It is. I've seen it as well. And the other issue is because when you're pregnant and you're making a fetus, so much of your nutrient stores are going to the baby. The baby is just like a leech soaking all that up. And so if there's not enough time between the pregnancies, or if the woman was not supported enough to rebuild her body physically with nutrition, then going into a second or third pregnancy from a depleted place will dramatically impact the fetus's nutrition as well. And we see more chronic diseases. We also see issues with IQ as well, which is pretty interesting because the brain development is so vital with the omegas, and especially omega-3s. And if there's a depletion of that in the pregnant woman's body, the fetus will directly be impacted by that. So, this is just about, once again, my podcast is all about empowering and educating women. So this is not to scare anyone, but just to really, as women, we have more information than perhaps we're getting from our OBGYN's office or from our primary care doctor's office about what we can do to make better, smarter choices regarding lifestyle, regarding being an educated consumer. So buying, for storage, food storage at home, buying glass containers as opposed to Tupperware plastic containers. Buying healthier organic skincare, makeup, and beauty products. And the EWG does a great job at educating us on what to avoid regarding different products and brands, and what brands and products are safe that aren't going to create more hormonal imbalance. And then just on and on. There's so many great decisions that we can make, and taking baby steps and just saying, oh, okay, now I'm going to switch out my shampoo and conditioner this week, and don't have to go, full Monty, but just saying, okay, here's some ways I can make better, smarter choices, and I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to do this for the health of my family, and also for the environment and the planet.
Right. Certainly.
Yeah. So let's end this podcast with your top 5 health tips to committing to positive lifestyle changes.
Okay. We've gone over a couple of these actually, but I'll just recap. The first one I was going to talk about was about having an accountability partner, like a health coach, because, like I said, it helps to have that second set of eyes when you're kind of exploring this whole new world of information. The second thing is sharing your journey on the internet through a blog, or just connecting with like-minded people who are going through similar things. I think that the internet provides us with such a unique way to encourage each other and uplift each other on our health journeys. So I think that's a really important and cool thing that we can do in 2015. The third health tip is to not try and change everything about your life at once. I remember the feelings, of being overwhelmed because I thought, oh my gosh, I have to change everything that I eat. I have to throw all my shampoo out. I have to do all this stuff. But I think that slow and deliberate change is the kind that tends to stick. So do slowly change your diet and slowly remove the things that you eat that you know are bad for you. Slowly replace your personal care products, but don't feel like you have to do it all today. And then the number 4 is keeping a food journal, like we talked about, to track what, when, and where you eat. It's helpful to look back and see that every time, even today, when I make a food journal, I learn something. I think it's also been shown that we might eat a little less of the things that are bad for us, knowing that I'll write it down later and show it to someone else.
Right.
So that's an important thing. You know, there are so many apps that you can get also to track your food intake, or you can obviously just make one in a handwritten journal. And then the last health tip is eating an alkaline diet. This is one of the most important principles, I think, about holistic nutrition, because the premise is that when our diet is too acidic from eating too much sugar or processed foods, our body has to release those alkaline minerals that it had stored for a rainy day in order to neutralize those excess acids in our body. So it can lead to issues with our bones. It can lead to osteoporosis. So eating alkaline allows our body to reserve those stored alkaline minerals. And some particularly alkalizing foods that we can eat are green vegetables, avocados, whey protein, almonds, potatoes, and bananas. And then obviously you can also take a mineral supplement to include the principal alkaline minerals, which are calcium, sodium, magnesium, cobalt, and copper.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I know kale is definitely in there with those alkaline-rich foods. One of my favorites.
Definitely.
I love it. So, Shelby, how can our listeners find you if they're interested in getting more information and scheduling a session with you?
Definitely. My website is webbwellnessconsulting.com. It's Webb with 2 B's. And then I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at WebbWellConsult, and then at Facebook.com/Webb Wellness Consulting. And so, like I said, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, but if you don't, we can certainly meet via Skype.
Mm-hmm, which is great. So, no matter where somebody lives, they can have access to your knowledge and information. And certainly I hear, your passion for what you do and educating women about how to improve their health through nutrition, which is, food
Right.
as medicine. It's so important. And this is awesome that they have, they can work with you. And then there's that, I'm sure, follow-up accountability that would be included as well to help keep them on the right track.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Shelby, thanks again for coming on the show today. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.